Hi, this is Garnet Dupuy, and we have a presentation from Possibility Wave. This presentation is entitled The Faith Field, How to Amplify Your Consciousness. The Faith Field. As I mentioned, this is Garnet Dupuy. I'm your presenter, and I'm the co-founder and creative and technical designer of Possibility Wave. Very happy and proud of that. If you'd like to connect with Possibility Wave, there's a website, of course. It's www.possibilitywave.com. This presentation is focusing on the faith field. I'm aiming for about an hour. Let's see how it goes. The faith field. It's a name that, as far as I know, I made up. But it reflects something that is not unique to my own understandings. There are a lot of views and ideas about something that we could call the faith field. Basically, the faith field is a skillful approach used to amplify certain activities and effects of your consciousness. So whatever it is that you're doing with your consciousness, some action or intention, you can amplify using what we call the faith field. As you may know, Possibility Wave specializes in information coded biofeedback programs and applications. And consciousness is involved in the critical dynamics of many design elements in information coded biofeedback. So as I said, this faith field is one way of amplifying consciousness that results in a highly improved experience in the information coded biofeedback practices. So if you have any interest, planned new interest or current involvement with information coded biofeedback or any kind of similar technology or design, and you'd like to have highly improved experiences, I would strongly recommend that you consider exploring with me the faith field. Actually, and you may know this already, the faith field goes far, far beyond uses in information coded biofeedback. Anything in your life involving conscious effort or intention or effect can be amplified, potently amplified, by using your faith field. So, believe me, it goes far beyond information coded biofeedback, but it is also inherently critical in information coded biofeedback. Yeah, have we been here before? Yeah, if you've had any exposure to past presentations from Possibility Wave, there's a big fat one. It's quite long, 10 hours and 4 different parts and segments. The title and subject was Signal Encoding Theory and Biofeedback. And within that large narrated PowerPoint presentation, the topic of the faith field was introduced and integrated into the subject. So if you'd like to explore the faith field in that larger specific context, I'd advise you to have a look at the sourcing and check out the narrated PowerPoint presentation entitled Signal Encoding Theory in Biofeedback. Yeah, there's a lot of talk. These days, there's a lot of talk about consciousness, and not only in spiritual circles, but also in certain areas of science. And I say certain areas because science is not one unified effort. It's a principle. It's a way of going about things. And the predominant way for the past 250, almost 300 years has been what we have labeled scientific materialism. And in scientific materialism, a very mechanical, objective, kind of lifeless, in a way, approach to reality, consciousness was a strange, uncomfortable subject. And there are those that have the position that it doesn't even really exist, that it's just a kind of an artifact, an epiphenomena of neurological activity, and that it's kind of an illusion. That's an extreme view, but you'll find similar views in different degrees in scientific materialism. You know, the classic date is around 1925, 1927, with the birth of what's called quantum mechanics. The whole quantum issue popped onto the scene at like 1900 with Max Planck, and then was fortified with the concept of little quanta of energy with Einstein. But then a whole new second generation blossomed, or you could say exploded, in a couple of years, 1925 to 1927, with quantum mechanics. So it was not just the fact that energy existed in discrete kind of digital steps, but that all the associated behaviors as a consequence of that began to become evident in that stage, that second revolution of quantum mechanics. And you bounce into things like the observer effect, uncertainty, probability, famous cats owned by Schrödinger. So, in a sense, consciousness comes out of the closet for a whole new generation of scientists. The issue to this date is unresolved. It's highly controversial at certain levels, although the mathematics of quantum mechanics has never failed. So something's going on. Not only has it mobilized an entirely new and radical generation of scientific inquiry and understanding, it's also fueled a broad and diverse popular philosophy. That's to say, the society's relationship and reaction and evolution of quantum mechanics outside of the strict science. And what we have is a philosophy that is highly varied. It ranges from the profound to just plain silly stuff. There's a lot of resistance inherent to changing your worldview, and that is both in the lay and professional elements of society. But, you know, in all kinds of ways, there are new insights, and people in general are increasingly more open to these new insights. And it's all about how what we'll call the material world, you know, what I'm looking at and touching right now, like you, and how it works or relates to this thing called consciousness. There are a few topics, if any, that are more profound. What you want to happen, I say here, arguably, one of the most popular concepts that links consciousness to the material world is this business that is normally called intention. And the idea is fairly simple. You see clearly what you want and it will manifest. Intention. So, intention, faith field. Possibility wave wants to take it a few steps further. We recognize the validity of intention, but, however, the view of possibility wave is that intention alone is underpowered for the tasks at hand. We believe that intention is significantly important, but that it needs to exist within a kind of a small collection of dynamics, and that intention alone is underpowered. And these few steps further, it's what we call the basic faith field. No, it's not weird, although at first glance it may just seem odd or challenging or obscure, but it's certainly not weird. It's actually quite reasonable and rational as a process. Each step in the basic faith field process you can understand and you can appreciate. In a way, you're going to end up, I believe, thinking or accepting that it's kind of common sense. The basic faith field. Let's start with a little bit of a definition, because there are two words here, faith and field, defining the words. Let's start off with faith. This is the definition that I use. There are others that are similar, but I think they amount to the same endpoint. First of all, to be clear, when I use the word faith, it is entirely non-religious. It's not meant to imply any association with any organized body or religious group or anything that may exist in your vocabulary that relates faith directly and undeniably only with the religious activity. So let's be clear about that. What I'm saying here is that faith, and I'll read, it's a state of consciousness. It's a state of consciousness in which you rest and reside in a clear and determined view, and that view is based on your direct experience. So I guess there are four parts to that definition, that it's a state of consciousness, meaning that there are lots of states of consciousness, innumerable, perhaps infinite. In earlier presentations, I say that awareness is, and that consciousness is all the different modulations that are possible of awareness. A little bit like if you imagine modeling clay. You know, the clay is the clay, awareness is the clay, and you can make all kinds of shapes with it, unending shapes. So I would call those different shapes different states of consciousness. But it's always still clay. In this case, faith is a state of consciousness, a type or a modulation in consciousness. And in that state, you're able to rest and reside, meaning that you can actually be there without effort. You're resting. And reside, meaning you can stay there for long periods of time. If you have a home, you may leave your home to go do something, but your home is your center point. It's where you reside. So you rest and reside in this state of consciousness. And in its nature, it's a very clear and determined view that you have in this faith. It's clear and determined. You've arrived at it. It's matured. And where does it all come from? Who knows where it started, but it is truly based in your direct experience. So I would say these four elements combined create what I'm calling faith. State of consciousness in which you rest and reside in a clear and determined view, and that view is based on your direct experience. That's faith. Field. Well, I was raised a farmer, so I thought a field was something that you had to grow things in and work with a tractor, but from our science, the word field has emerged as a very popular term. It's a non-physical domain of activity and influence that has no boundary or limit. Theoretically, it goes on infinitely. It may get weaker and weaker and weaker, but there's no way of knowing exactly where that field stops. So it's a non-physical domain. It has activity and influence. Within that, whatever agent is at the heart of this field, it allows for activity and influence within the field, and that there's no apparent boundary or limit. There may be a weakening or not, but at least it's not a discrete, hard edge. And interestingly, this field, it allows for individual activities to merge seamlessly with the collective experience of all other similar activities. That's a pretty big deal, where a little bit of something joins a great big something, and in that joining there's now an inseparable quality, so that the individual and the collective become unified and inseparable. Faith field. You know, do I need it? Do I need to have a faith field? Well, if you're working with information coded biofeedback and you're sincere that you want to get the most out of it, I would have to say the answer is, well, yes. Yeah, I would say you need it. And then the fact is the faith field is an integral factor in all aspects of your life. So I can't see how you can lose, depending on your involvement or interest in information coded biofeedback. I think I'd have to give you, in my strong opinion that yes, you should work at developing a faith field. However, I think it's great in all aspects of your life. Right now, what I'd like you to do is just consider it as a possibility. Think about it and watch as this presentation unfolds whether it seems like something attractive, whether it's a good fit for you, the faith field. It's basic. Yeah, actually the faith field is something you construct, and you do it step by step by step. I use this acronym of BASIC, B-A-S-I-C. This is a simple reference or a guide on how to construct your own faith field. So it is reasonable, it's rational. There's a methodology, a kind of a formula. The formula is clear, it's succinct. If you follow it, you'll end up with a faith field. It's basic. Let's break it down, this acronym, B-A-S-I-C, basic faith field. B, that's your belief, your system of belief, your personal view of reality honestly recognized. Personal view of reality. I'm not saying it is reality, but it's your view of reality. And that you really have to honestly recognize what is your belief system. What are the core or fundamental beliefs that you associate with reality? A, attention. This is your ability to shift and maintain your focus. A diffuse attention capacity weakens all the different activities in consciousness. There's no doubt about that. And you'll see as we develop these that attention is a critical early factor in the formula of the basic faith field construction. So B, A. Next comes S, the stimulus. Stimulus? Yeah. It's your motivation as to why you are doing it. The why question, the motivation. That's stimulus. 1, 2, 3, B-A-S. And I, there's intention. Remember earlier we said that there's a lot of talk about intention, and that intention from the possibility wave point of view, all by itself, as an amplifier of consciousness, is underpowered. So here is intention. And what is that? Well, we say it's the clarity as to what you are aiming for. Just before that, we had stimulus. That's your motivation as to why you are doing it. That's the why question. Intention is the what question. You have to really be clear as to what it is that you're aiming for. Last of all, C. That's your conviction, your willingness to persevere in this experience, to keep at it. Because just because you have a basic faith field and that you're now engaging and utilizing this to amplify your consciousness doesn't mean that everything is creamy dreamy, perfectly smooth now. There are going to be elements that enter into this that can be challenging. And if you don't have your conviction to persevere, that willingness, even then, you can disappoint yourself. So, that's the basic breakdown of how to construct a faith field. B-A-S-I-C, belief, attention, stimulus, intention, conviction. I'm saying here it's not mandatory, but I do have to say it does work best to construct your basic faith field by proceeding step by step through the formula. You start at the beginning and you work towards the end. It's up to you, but sometimes the things that we think, it's okay, I don't need to do that. There's something there that may be worth having a closer look. So let's go through it. Let's examine each of the 5 steps. We'll do it one by one to give you a better insight into the process. You'll see it's pretty straight ahead. It's easy, actually, but like in life, just because it's easy doesn't mean that it's always without its own challenge. So let's see, okay? B, belief. Yeah, this is the starting point. This is where you begin in your construction of the faith field. And I have to say, it's really easy to just skip right over it. Well, that's weird. Why is it the first thing but easy to skip? Well, it's easy to skip because you have to kind of admit that we all assume that our view of reality is true and accurate. We may not appreciate that our view of reality is built with beliefs. And you can sometimes kind of miss that point. This assumption that your view of reality is already at this point in your life completely true and accurate, this assumption is dangerous and can easily pollute or infect your faith field. So I got to say, be careful here. This is going to take some open-mindedness, I would say. True of every one of us, absolutely, including me and everyone I know, that exploring your belief systems in and of itself is provocative. The beginnings of belief, yeah, I think it's pretty much accepted that we absorb the belief systems of our family and our culture during our childhood. There's not much, I mean, there are a few of us rare individuals that question it all at a very early age, but for the most part, we're just absorbing without really challenging in these early stages. So these belief systems, they really go unchallenged until we begin to mature. It's in the maturation process, and exactly when that begins is according to the person, I would suppose, and maybe also the flexibility of the culture. But it's in maturation where your own direct experiences allow you to review and then assess the beliefs of your youth. And you may find, of course, that there are some that are confirmed, others that are questionable, and others that are outright rejected, the beginnings of belief. If you honestly and sincerely explore your belief, you will quickly discover that you have a set of boundaries. And these boundaries separate what you end up calling true and false. Very, very intriguing discovery when you bump into your boundaries of belief. These boundaries of belief, they are the very first guides in your quest to clarify the belief aspect of your faith field. If it just seems too broad to begin with, then just notice what divides true and false for you. You know, how can you explain why this side of the fence is true, that side of the fence is false? Begin with the boundaries of your belief. And again, if you had encountered the signal encoding theory and biofeedback, you know that this is a big part of that presentation. As a matter of fact, it constitutes the entire first part of a 4-part, 10-hour presentation, part 1. So if you'd like to do a deeper exploration of the boundaries of belief and all the axioms that are associated with belief boundaries, I would really invite you to have a look at that presentation. Maybe not the whole thing, but certainly part 1, which focuses on boundaries of belief. That's the signal encoding theory in biofeedback. Yeah, where to begin? It's a bit ironic, but the best place to begin is with the beliefs that to you seem so obvious that you don't even label them as beliefs. They're just the facts of reality. You know, who would question that there's a sun in the sky? If you're fortunate enough to have an open-minded friend, at least one, and if not, try it with a mirror, I suppose. But find an open-minded friend and explain to them as precisely as you can why this, and you can choose any that you encounter, but why this specific belief for you is just a fact of reality. It's not a belief that you have, it is the nature of reality. Tell them why. Tell them why. Hopefully they're good listeners. These are just a few examples. I mean, there are hundreds of things that you could pull up. Are the body, mind, and spirit separate entities or not? Well, I expect you, like everybody else, you have a position on this. What is the position? How do you confirm or clarify it? You know, what if it's whatever belief you have about that? How do you justify that belief, and how is that related to reality, or is it? Does consciousness exist without a body? Does the material world exist as real objects, or is it a kind of illusion? You can go back, you know, to the dawn of Western philosophy. I can't say clearly about Oriental or Eastern, but you know, Plato and his cave and so many others had early opinions about this. You know, this was the biggest, one of the biggest controversies of the entire 19th century was, what is a soul, and do animals have souls? And at the time, the early science was saying, no, it's just machines, and when they squirm in pain, it's just a reflex. They don't actually experience suffering, which was the rationale for vivisection, you know, cutting animals open while they're alive to study them. And even, believe it or not, why this similar thing was thought of as babies, and why babies were operated on without anesthesia. And even into our early modern age, they were typically under anesthetized because of the hangover of that belief that, yeah, the baby was screaming and crying, but it wasn't really suffering. Those are just mechanical reflexes. What is a soul, and do animals have souls? Anyway, these are just examples. I mean, I'm not saying choose these. Look at your own set of beliefs. Try to identify what is really, you know, the keystone concepts or beliefs that you have that you associate with reality. You know, this is the fact that until you really push at it, so many of these profound beliefs, they sit silently at the very core of our view of reality. You know, it's probably you've just never had the chance. You never tried to justify or clarify them to other people, or frankly, even to yourself. In my honest experience, attempting to explain them out loud is a fascinating existential exercise. Again, try to find somebody open-minded, somebody who's a good listener. They're not going to jump in and challenge you or quarrel with you. You know, you can invite them to ask questions. But pick from your reflection beliefs that seem so obvious that you don't even think of them as beliefs, that they are just facts of reality. And out loud, attempt to justify or clarify them to another person. This is part of the process, and there are different ways of doing it, but part of the process of step one in constructing a faith field. When you begin to construct your basic faith field, what you'll understand sooner or later is that belief acts as the actual foundation for the whole structure. And if your view of reality, composed of your beliefs, if your view of reality does not align with the other four elements in the basic faith field, you will constantly be at risk of self-sabotage. You'll be able, even if you nail the ASIC of basic, if the belief element has not been reviewed, clarified, inspected, if you've not massaged it into satisfaction for yourself. Self-sabotage is, I say here, there's a constant risk. It's probably, well, it's a very high probability of self-sabotage, I would say. Be attentive, don't rush, spend your time. You will find that you will probably continually return to the B of belief as you move through constructing the faith field and even using the faith field. Because in a way, once you've done the B-A-S-I-C, there's a tendency for the arrow of progression to come back to the B again. I'm not going to lean on that too much, but it can be a cycle that just keeps repeating and refining itself. But in this case, B for belief. Don't sabotage yourself. You have to make sure that your view of reality aligns with the other elements of the faith field. Okay, moving along. A for attention. It's basic, right? B-A-S-I-C. So B was belief, A is attention. First line, first point. If you don't clarify your beliefs, you will not be able to sustain your attention. There's always going to be something kind of in the back of your mind. There's some kind of unsettling, perturbing, irritating something that will act to disquiet, to disturb, to diffuse your attention. So, be careful here. Right? Without clarifying your beliefs, you're not going to be able, it's a warning or a caution or just advice. You're not going to be able to sustain your attention if you've got something niggling at the back of your mind that's not been resolved. Actually, all of the 5 steps in the construction of your faith field, they're all related and they're all in a sense interdependent. And you'll see it as you work with them. Right now we're going through a presentation, relatively short, about an hour, where you get to see all the different steps and the elements within the step and kind of a little bit of the logic of it. But you'll never really know as much as you can until you enact it, until you move through it with your own experience. They are definitely interdependent. So when we say attention, it usually implies attention to what? You have to be attentive on something or to something. And listen to this and you'll catch the meaning, I think. It's a little bit of a twist, but not much. When you start with the B of belief in constructing the basic faith field, you're going to then develop the A by borrowing a few things from the initial B. Right? The beliefs, something in there you can use to work at developing attention. And attention is that ability to shift and maintain your focus, as you will recall. Okay, traditionally, and this is throughout many traditions, little different, tradition, but really all the same. There are 3 interrelated approaches in developing your ability to shift and maintain attention. Each of these 3 have particular benefits and they all have a role to play. One is not better than the other. They're all, actually traditionally, they're combined differently, but combined from person to person as they progress. So what are these 3 interrelated approaches? Well, the 3 traditional approaches are meditation, contemplation, and study. And what do I mean by that? Well, meditation, and there are just a huge collection of techniques, but basically they train the behavior of the mind. This is, I think, a reasonable statement to define at a very basic level meditation. Training the behavior of the mind. Contemplation. This involves the capacity of the mind to think, and in contemplation, what a person does is enter into deep and sustained reflection on a particular idea. So you think about it this way, and then that way, and then what about this and that? And it's not frivolous thinking. It's a meaningful, sensitive, kind of open-minded, but a reflection process. So contemplation. And then the third thing is study. This is where you have continued new, meaningful learning. You're exploring, you're getting data and points of view from different sources. And these three things combine to create a healthy spiritual, psychological approach to something. The three approaches: meditation, contemplation, and study. So what about here in the A of the basic faith field? Okay. You will recall that in B, you were clarifying your key beliefs, what constitute for you facts of reality. Now, the suggestion is, in developing attention, is to reflect back on one or more of those beliefs. Pick out one or two that are really important to you. They stand out and they're special in some way. And engage in contemplation of that key belief. Spend time, consider it, right? Examples will come up, different points of view, different nuances. This is the whole process of contemplation, famous throughout human history. So here, you're going to experience a double effect. First of all, the process of contemplating key beliefs is going to bring about new and unexpected understandings that you didn't have before about those beliefs. That in itself is a huge gift. But also what you'll notice is that your capacity for attention is going to strengthen and strengthen and strengthen. So, begin to develop attention by frequently contemplating on your specific core beliefs. You can see how B and A, belief and attention, hold each other's hand in the beginning of the construction of the faith field. It's intriguing and it works. It's healthy. It's really psychologically healthy. Okay, next of all, stimulus. If you take your clarified beliefs and your strengthened attention, what you've got is a kind of a launch pad for the next step. A launch pad in the next step of constructing your basic faith field. In this formula, the basic, BASIC formula, the stimulus, which is number 3, it explores the very big question, why? Why are you wanting to do what you want to do? Why? The stimulus answers the why question of motivation. What's your motivation here? Actually, I like the word motivation better than stimulus, but for the sake of the acronym, stimulus helped create the word basic, so there you go. But anyway, it's still true. It's a good word. Stimulus answers the why question. Why? Why do you want to do what you want to do? Notice how the S is before the I. Before we get into the what, which is intention, obviously, you have to have the why in the construct. It is a big mistake to jump into the what, that is to say intention, of the basic faith field construction without honestly examining your why stimulus or your motivation. If you really settle into this as a demand to yourself to clarify why am I da-da-da-da-da-da, why? What it's going to do is it's going to work at directing your consciousness like a compass, a very reliable compass. It always guides you through your experience. The why of your action, the why before the what. I'd say think about it. Lots of different examples here, but let's say here's a person's intention, and what do they intend? Well, their intention is to learn all about banking. That's the what. That's the what. Yeah, what do you want to do? I want to learn all about banking. You just see it in your mind. There it is, banking, and you're going to, it's like that. That's the what. But I'd have to say, well, why? Can you please explain the reason, or the stimulus, or the motivation for wanting to learn all about banking, to become a banking expert? And I say here, and this is maybe funny or not, but anyway, I say, let's say there are two possible whys here. One is that you want to become a successful banker in an emerging nation. Because of that, you want to learn all about banking. You want to just understand it completely. Or another why is that you want to plan the biggest bank robbery in history. You see, in both cases, the what is the same. The intention is to learn all about banking. The intention is to XYZ. The intention is to, heal your dog. The intention is to make $1 million. There are all of these highs and lows that float around these days, and all sorts of different techniques purported as to how to pursue the intention. And I gotta say, minimally, if you don't want to do the whole basic faith field, at least review the why, the stimulus, the motivation before you jump into the what. Anyway, I say here that the why exposes the what. Why? That's the S. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, yes. So don't be too hard on yourself. Garnet, anybody. On the other hand, it's also really critical that when you build the basic faith field and you have a motivation, do your best to come from what I'm calling here a higher place. I see so much, it's like a renewal of old stuff going through, especially the internet these days, where, I don't know, all of this magical thinking, and it's all about, I can't say it's all about, but I see certain sources, focusing on, get all of your dreams come true, experience the abundance that you deserve, and find the mate that will make you happy. And it goes on and on and on, and I don't know. Do what you do, but when you work with why and the motivation, do your best. Because after all, it's an amplifier of consciousness that we're working with here. And we really want to have a contribution to the real good of life and make positive choices. That's a little bit of maybe this is like a sidebar or something like that, but work at sensitively reviewing the why of what you're doing. Okay, here we are at intention. B-A-S-I-C, I for intention. And I stated before, I don't know if it's controversial or not, I really don't know, but the view of possibility wave is that intention all by itself is underpowered. It's not going to, I believe in most every case, it's not going to satisfy you with what you would hope it would. So here, it's the fourth step. It's certainly not the only step. There are 5 steps. That's the first thing. But even in the 5, it's the fourth step. There are 3 things to do along the formula. It's a kind of a linear formula, not mandatory, but suggested. So, okay, intention alone, I think it's underpowered in acts of consciousness. You gotta love that 3-wheeler car. Think about this, because you want to avoid conflict, right? Avoid conflict. If your intention, that's the what, if your intention is not supported by your beliefs, you will experience conscious conflict. If the set of beliefs that you have, your view of reality, if they don't support what it is that you're intending, you're going to experience conflict, kind of a conscious existential conflict. And as you might guess, it's going to undermine what it is that you want to experience. Certainly the amplification is going to be troublesome. Again, secondly, and if your intention does not align with your stimulus, with your motivation, with the why, you will also experience conscious conflict. So be careful here. Recognize you can avoid certain types of conflict by working the whole formula of the faith field through the basic set of steps. Yeah, the basic faith field, even as you start to construct it, it's at the same time being weakened, and it can just sometimes crumble right in the midst of the construction process. There you are over a certain period of days or weeks or months, working and doing this thing. And the fact is that it's kind of been infected by two poisons. I know you don't really get infections from poisons, but you get the idea. What are these two poisons? I say, well, one is doubt. And how does doubt arise? Well, if your intention, that's the what, is in conflict with your beliefs, automatically you're going to have a doubt that is stirred into the process. Because there's the what of what you want to do, to experience, and yet your beliefs in certain ways contradict it. That's why you'll experience doubt. So if you notice doubt, you can look more closely at your intention, but I would recommend that you jump back and have a good look at your beliefs and see whether your beliefs and this intention align. The other one is guilt. Doubt and guilt. If your intention, the what, is in conflict with your motivation, maybe you really don't think it's a good idea to be a bank robber, to go back to my silly example. So guilt can arise if your intention is in conflict with your stimulus or your motivation, right? If the what is in conflict with the why, you'll notice this scent of something called guilt. The what of intention is directly linked to what I call here the seed of need and the fire of desire. The seed of need and the fire of desire. Funny. The need and the desire, these aren't bad things. They work at supplying the fuel for the engine, but they really shouldn't be allowed to drive the car. Be very careful if you naively unleash need and desire without counterbalancing and harmonizing it with the rest of the entire basic formula. Yeah, filter your intention. So when you're arriving at the I, the intention, go back and look at the belief and ensure that your view of reality is well-founded in relation to this intention. And make sure that with attention that you've cleansed these beliefs with deep and honest contemplation. And have a good look, as best as you can, at what I'll call your heart's desire. Your motivation, the why, to make sure that it's aligned with your intention. So you've got right now 3 different, what I'm calling kind of filters for your intention. Before you punch it into drive, using the fuel, make sure that you've filtered it through belief, attention, and stimulus. C equals conviction. This is the last of the BASIC, conviction. And what you'll notice is that if you've really done your best with the BASI, when there kind of all falling into place, that the conviction element, it's going to come just like a gift. It's not something that you've got to, lift weights to get or something like that. It's a kind of a gift that comes forward when you've done your work up until that point. So if you wonder, like, how do I get conviction? Well, you get conviction by doing the BASI elements in the formula, working honestly to get them what I call all in place. Because conviction, it holds it all together. It's a kind of glue, the glue of conviction. Yeah, there's that saying, fake it till you make it. I say here, sir, you can't fake it. It just doesn't work like that. You can't fake conviction. You may want it, but you can't fake it. It's going to arise when you do the BASI. It's going to arise. And then later on, once you engage the faith field and you start to experience the benefits, the results, the rewards, of course that's going to fortify your conviction. But you need conviction before that point because there are plenty of bumps in the road. I'm using an analogy. Lots of different challenges that will emerge. And no, they're not there to test you. It's not some kind of, I don't know, guy in the sky who's testing you or something like that. It's just the nature of things. All the roads have bumps. It's just, because we're working at unfolding a process called our life, and it's not pre-existing. We create it as we go along in so many ways. I like the photo. No, sorry, being hard-headed is not the same as having conviction. You can most certainly be stubborn and wrong. So conviction, it will arise. I'm calling it a gift if you do your work. It's going to grow. It'll become strong and more strong. And as it does, and you're risking and engaging the faith field, you're going to see that it's reliable, that even when it's tested, when something doesn't turn out the way you thought it should turn out, and you need a little bit of patience to hang in, what you'll see is that conviction is there. Yeah, I think this is really, it's a little bit more subtle, but it's important. That as your state of conviction matures, what you're going to notice is that the conviction will begin to manifest as a reassuring sense of calm. I don't know. You see, like, somebody in martial arts or something like that, and they can kick your butt any time. There's no need for a lot of chest-thumping bravado. They can seem like spooky calm. Well, because they're convinced. They have conviction that they're going to be okay. They can handle things as they occur. Frankly, even in the martial arts, the use of the basic faith field is right there. And I think the sense of calm, I don't know if it's a direct result, but it's certainly associated with the fact that real conviction is rooted in a clean conscience. It's the first time I used the word conscience in this presentation. A conscience. A clean conscience. That reflection, the revisiting back on the veracity of the beliefs that you have and how you've contemplated and settled and been attentive and to be able to sustain that attention, and how you've really done your best to arrive at a motivation, at a stimulus where the why of what you're doing is from a higher place, and that this intention now has been unleashed in these ways to give the best assurance of a best result. What comes out of this in association with conviction is a clean conscience. So that as you amplify the different elements, the different activities of consciousness, that this amplification is free of distortion. You know what it's like if you, with an amplifier, if, I don't know, the speakers are too close, or it's a cheap amplifier, or you're cranking too hard, or something, that you can get distortion. You get amplification, but the signal is distorted. So we're working here with a basic faith field that amplifies consciousness free of distortion. Clean conscience. Okay, wrapping it up, I would say that constructing a basic faith field is definitely one of the most positive and beneficial acts of your life. And as I said in the very beginning of the presentation, it goes way, way, way beyond information coded biofeedback. However, it is also directly applicable and related to the design and usage, the generation of experience using information coded biofeedback. Consciousness is involved, no doubt. Be patient. Go step by step. It is definitely worth it. A life skill. A life skill means that once you have that skill, you can use the skill over and over again in different circumstances for different purposes, but it's the same inherent skill. And this skill definitely will open doors in consciousness. And yeah, honestly, it'll never cease to amaze you. The basic faith field. Until the next time, yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you honestly for your time and your interest. If you'd like more information on Possibility Wave, Information Coded Biofeedback, as well as this thing we call the Possibility Wave Open Classroom, where learning is always best when it's shared, contact us at our website, www.possibilitywave.com. We're clocking in at just around 57 minutes or so let's call it an hour together. Thanks very much. You take care.